All right, and we're live. Welcome, everybody. Oz, great to see you, my friend.
Likewise.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has.
It has. Yeah, no, super grateful to see you and have you come back on the show. It's been almost, I think, a year and a half since we jammed on here. So, yeah, I'm excited. So we'll dive right
As
in.
am
Okay.
I. As am
Yeah,
I.
beautiful. So I want to go right into it. So you, as we're recording this, you just put out a article on it's on strongfirst.com. It's called A 3-Year Journey of ETK, which is Enter the Kettlebell on here. Great article. Love, there's a lot of philosophies within it that I think is really powerful and reason why a lot of us who are in this community do what we do, really dive into this system. So I want to get your take on it a little bit more and dive into it. So to begin with, how did a 3-year journey on the same program start for you on here? How did this come about?
So I had taken a workshop in La Jolla by a woman named Sarah Laurie, who is the founder of IronCore. And she kind of put me on that path because when I asked her, hey, where can I get a kettlebell? She said, Dragon Door. Of course, when I went there, kind of all of a sudden you open this door to this whole new world, right? And you have Pavel's books, you have some educational materials in there by, of course, my favorite. Look, it didn't take long for me to inject Brett into this conversation.
100.
Brett has some videos in there. And when I started to study them, it became just very clear to me that this is something that I had been looking for and I just didn't know it. And the reason for that is because there's a reason why we call hardstyle the martial art of strength training. And it's because the parallels there are just undeniable. And I immediately saw that. And I was drawn to it because I come from that martial arts background. And, the composition of these programs, the way in which they are delivered or like put forth for you to do, the the latitude that you have within the program to work within your own skill level and build it, right? And take it further. All of these things were like calling to me, like, my God, like this is the next step. Because I had been doing all that conventional stuff for a very long time. And again, fantastic. Every once in a while, I'll go back to it. There's a place and a time and all of those good things. It's not, oh, this is better. It's just different. And it was the kind of different that I needed at the time. And that's what drew me so hard into it.
Mhm. What was the difference? You mentioned it's that parallel of martial arts. And, for anybody who doesn't understand what those parallels are, what do you mean by that? What is the same philosophy of hard style kettlebell training that you saw a glimpse of it from the experience you had with martial arts training?
The most clear example that I can make or parallel that I can draw is that we practice our skill. The point is not to do 1,000 back kicks. The point is to do one really good one and then try to learn from that so that maybe the next one can retain some of that beautiful, perfect essence. And that you can get to the point where when you do something, you say this phrase all the time, like you do it so much that you can't get it wrong anymore, right?
Mhm.
Like that's basically what we're looking for with hardstyle. We're always looking for a sense of like making it automatic. And we do that through very focused, very frequent practice. And it's different because in most systems, you're going to be told, like, well, you got to work really hard to the point where tomorrow you're going to be sore. And then, if you're not doing that, you're not growing. You really got to push yourself past that limit. But we look at it differently. We go, hey, how about we don't exert ourselves that much? So that way we can practice again tomorrow and the
Mhm.
day after that and the day after that. And then those numbers exponentially grow because we are getting more frequent practice, not only frequent practice, but higher quality practice. And that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's this phrase, I forget where I heard it from, but I've been pondering it over the last month or so of we're not here to do a bunch of reps. We're here to do one rep very well a bunch of times. And it's like, if you take like a snatch test for like 100 reps, like you can do 100 reps in your training. It's like the goal is not to do 100 reps. The goal is to do one rep very well and do that 100 times over. And it's an easy kind of changeover to make that and just hear it on the surface. But I think what it really means is being present in the moment of doing what you're doing. And For me, I know that's driven so much of my thought process and everything that I try and do, from training to business to relationships, podcast interviewing. I mean, all this different stuff from there. So that's where I've kind of see that parallel in there
Yeah.
from that. So with this, so you got the kettlebell, you want it to go, you got the Dragon Door, which I still think is the best quality kettlebells out there. Like the cast iron is so beautiful on there. Did you did you want to go into the kettlebell specifically because you found this program of ETK, or did you find the ETK program after you already kind of committed in your mind of like, I need to learn this tool and learn this system?
No, luckily for me, the first educational material that I had was Brett's kettlebells for strength coaches and personal trainers, which I still own, by the way,
Yeah.
and I revisit. And I'm not even joking. Like, if you look at that video, like what you learn there is basically what it is now. Like, that's
Mhm.
how good it was early on, well, especially coming from him, right? Like, it's the reason he's the director of education. But I had that video already, right? So I get this very focused, like, hey, form really matters here, which has become a defining part of the way that I teach as a coach, the way that I teach strength training. It's like, listen, like, this has to be a really good focus. There's a lot of benefits to be gained from us focusing on really pristine form up front. Some people have debated me on the fact that, well, is it really that important in the beginning? You just want the person to do it, and just whatever they can do. And, there's always exceptions. I'm not going to deny that. But for the most part, we are all going to benefit more from just taking a step back, putting a little more attention into it and a little more thought, and just kind of clearing things out and just
Mhm.
being fully present, which I think is the part that you were alluding to a few seconds ago. And to me, that starts to permeate into every aspect of your life. And then all of a sudden, that's how you do things all the time, which is very much a martial arts way of thinking and acting and living your life,
Mhm.
is to be in the moment and to do things to the best of your ability, not just like, oh, well, I'm just going to whatever today. No, 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 no. Why? What's going on? Like, ask yourself, like, why do you feel the need that today you're just kind of like, whatever? Like, I'm always asking myself that question. And, with hardstyle, it's very much like that, right? So I had Brett's DVD already, so that was very much like connecting with me in the sense of things that I had done before, in the way that I like to approach not just my training but my life. And then right next to it was the ETK book.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, I mean, it says like it has a good program. I might as well try it. And so I ordered it. It was just luck, really. And when the book arrived, I started to read it, and I started to go through it, and everything I was learning from the system was exactly, I don't know what to say that I was looking for. I don't think that's the right thing, but it just, it made me smile. It made me happy. It made me excited. It made sense to me. Like, it was like I was ready for that. Let's put it that way. Like, I
Mm.
had done enough already to where this weird way of organizing my workout and committing to doing just a few movements for many months and all of that, I didn't question it. Like so many other people in my life did at the time. People were like, well, is that going to be enough? The most common question, but is that
Right.
it? Like,
Right.
yeah, sure, that's it.
It is I wonder sometimes it's like if we think that focusing on technique, people naturally view that as a regression. Like like you're stepping back so much and like breaking it down. And I've always said like the more I've coached, it's like to get perfect perfect's a tough word because you never get there, but to have good technique or good form and intentional, technique, it doesn't take that much. Like, little tweaks here and there, like you can always work on it and you can always refine it. But if you go in with a perfect intention of doing it right, it's not going to regress at all. You're actually going to, like, we do the techniques and we teach them so you get your whole body working more together. And when you do that, boom, all of a sudden you're actually find you're stronger. You can progress actually faster when you do focus on good technique, you know? But I always thought that analogy of like two ships going in one direction, and if one just at the beginning makes a 5-degree turn, like, it's like you can keep going one direction and you're still seeing it in sight, but now all of a sudden, if you keep going down that path, now you're in completely different trajectories in there. So, should you start from the beginning at good technique? Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
the right move.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I've never seen anybody use that approach and go wrong with it. Let's say it that way, right?
That's beautiful. Yeah. You had a quote in there that I was curious about. You said, being conservative in my training has always paid off for me.
Mm.
Okay. How do you mean by that?
Well, it's very much to me an Eastern approach to things, right? Like I'm not trying to have the hardest kick or the hardest punch or be the guy that fights the hardest in my school. The idea that was conveyed to us by our instructor in martial arts was that this is for the long term. Look at it. Do you see yourself doing martial arts at 70 years old?
Mhm.
And if the answer is no, then perhaps you shouldn't do it anymore, right? Like why invest time and effort and resources into this if it's not forever, right? And perhaps that's a bit extreme. However, in order for you to have that longevity, you're going to have some restraint. You can't go doing silly things. You can go, well, I'm just going to try this PR and see if it goes. Like, you should have a pretty good idea if it's going to go. Don't just like, oh, yeah,
Right.
I'm going to try. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by being conservative is that we deep down inside, if we're tuned to what we're doing, we know where we are, I think, and then stepping outside a little bit, there's a line of your skill and beyond it, it's maybe not enough stimulus and, past it, it's perhaps too much. But if you stay close to it, that's where progress happens. You have
Mhm.
to, just like with training intensities and volumes, we ride a wave. There's a load that goes up and down. With our approach, we have to be very measured about when we're going to take that next step. I'm actually experiencing this 100% at the moment with what the training that I'm doing, which is very different than ETK. But, back in December, I went to Costa Rica and learned from Master Jeremy Laport, StrongFirst instructor, in his O-lifting seminar, and senior instructor Victor Carrillo down there. And I've been doing it ever since. Like I
Mm.
came home and I was jazzed up, and mostly because of the level of care that it takes. Now I get to put my own philosophy and all these things that we're talking about into practice. Now I get to go, okay, I got to be really conservative. Can I snatch or can I clean 100 kilos? I can,
Mhm.
100%. Is it pretty? No.
Yeah.
Is it safe? Hell no.
Mhm.
Is it wise? 100% no, right? So being conservative, hey, I'm going to do something that feels manageable so that I can continue to develop technique and allow my body to go through these physiological changes, right? Because the movements are very different.
Mhm.
And that's just a clean and jerk. Don't forget about the snatch. That's a whole other beast
Mhm.
that I'm just like, wow, how different is this? So, you know, this is a bit of a jump, but another thing that I've been doing is just really diving into the Olympic lifting side of the house. And I came across this thing called the long-term development model that they use to develop athletes in the United States. And, it's been used all over the world. There's different people that do it, but it's like, how do you develop it from when you're just a kid all the way into you're like a master's athlete, retire from, your athletic endeavors? And it's a really beautiful thing. But one of the more beautiful things about that model is that if you look at it, the more active competitive stage of it is very small in the big scheme of the whole like diagram or the visual depiction of what this looks like. And what we end up is with a very large part of that picture being after you've competed.
Mm.
When all we're really worried about is like longevity and health and being happy and being, functional for our lives so that we can play with our kids and our grandkids and that kind of stuff and enjoy life at a greater degree and with higher quality later on in life. So again, like all of these things to me feed into that, the conservatism, and these ideas. It's about having a long-term approach and
Mhm.
not being so blinded by the shiny little thing that's in front of you. I'm going to do this thing. What are you going to give up by trying to go for that? Are
Mhm.
you, like, or can you be more patient perhaps and still get it? It'll be a little bit down the road, but
Mhm.
you're still going to get it. It's just not going to come as fast, right? So these are the ideas that I kind of conveyed in the article and in the book and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, you just have to be conservative and be patient with yourself. Yeah, just don't be a frat boy, basically.
Right, right. Yeah. It is. I mean, because everybody will say that that's the goal, right? They want to be healthy for long term. They want to, be able to be active with their grandkids and, be in their homes and all this stuff and look out there. easy to say, but then actually approaching it on an everyday is very different of actually, not pulling yourself back, but actually like following the plan of investing like each day. It's like investing money. It's like very easy to want to make a big withdrawal and go buy that fun fancy thing because you're going to feel really good for it, or you just keep putting a little bit in at a time and barely even look at it, just let it do its course. It's kind of the same analogy of going into training. It's not overly emotional, it's not overly exciting, you're not getting like jazzed up for it. So during that journey, I'm sure like there is times when patience can get a little thin or you want to like push it from there. Did you have that at all, like when you were like getting into like the program minimum, like at the beginning here and going in, or was it very in your mind, like, no, I'm committed to just perfecting this craft. I'll know when I need to jump here and just kind of going on that course?
I was very much on that path where I was like happy with what I was doing. I
Mhm.
didn't really need any more stimulus. But here's an important part of this program and something that I believe people miss. When people look at this, oftentimes they're going to try to bring in other elements into it. And this happens for every program that we like
Mhm.
put out there, right? Like, well, I'm doing this. What can I mix with this to have that and whatever? This works magic when you're doing something else already for which you're not going to be wanting to do more strength training. So what I mean by that is like, if I'm dancing Tuesday night, Thursday night, I'm taking class like Monday, Wednesday, maybe Saturday morning, and then every quarter or so, I'm also performing. When do I have time to do all of the dancing and all the strength training and go to City College and, try to transfer to San Diego State and, go train my clients and have a girlfriend and eat, shower, sleep,
Mhm.
like, right? So what this allowed me was to like simplify all the strength training. It was super manageable. So I had no desire to go do anything else because I already had other things that I was doing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So this would be better if somebody had like, if somebody really wants to be really good at golf, I can see how the ETK would be a fantastic strength program for them. If somebody is trying to be a martial artist, which it surprises me that not more martial artists apply the ETK protocol into their programs because it's so complete. And with the demands of martial arts, you really have very few holes in your game. And if you
Mhm.
do, it's easily addressed. You know what I mean? But I think it works best when you have another activity that is physical in nature, but not strength training per se. Okay. So if you, hey, I want to have really big biceps and, really shapely buttocks or whatever, I don't know, like maybe this is not the best program and just do bodybuilding or something like that. Or if you just want to be freaky, like super strong, right, then do powerlifting. Or if
Mhm.
your thing is Ollie, then do Ollie, right? But where this program really shines is if you're trying to do something that is a little bit, along those lines of like martial arts or dance, or maybe another group, first responders. If I
Yeah.
had known this when I was in the army, if I had had this program, dude, it would have been awesome
Yeah.
because I would have felt all that pep and strength and conditioning that I had and the aesthetics to go with it from the ETK and still been able to go out and run six. I think on average, we're running like a 6 mile or a 4 mile, and then we do some sprints or something like that. We're running like 3 times a week and do the occasional like
Mm.
formation run and stuff like that. That would have been really good because one of the problems I had when I was in the military was the strength training that I was doing didn't really match the running and all the calisthenics and all the army training. And if we went to the field for a couple of weeks, by the time you came back after doing like traditional conventional training, you feel like you're starting over. With ETK, I could have brought my kettlebell to the field and done it out
Right.
there. I could have been doing PT with my unit, with kettlebells.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what it is that the person wants to do. But I feel like it really has to be combined with something that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like doing ETK and trying to like go to a powerlifting meet, probably not the best combination. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. That's interesting because as you said, like you had like 10 hours a week that you were dancing at that time. So training at that point, it's not something that you need to derive excitement or like any type of entertainment factor of it to kind of scratch that itch. You already had that at other sides from there. I think it's an important point as of just when you're connecting your training with the things that you want to do in your overall life in there, and then you see the connection of it, then when you have that connection, it does seem that you're not trying to grab at just random things just to give you kind of excitement or try something new. It's like, no, like if you want to be more energized because you're in a business building at the moment, or you're a dancer, or you're a first responder, as you said, yeah, you don't have time to like just add more things to make yourself entertained or just add variety for variety. And it's interesting because I reread some of Enter the Kettlebell before our conversation. And this was the first book I ever got. And I think I wore out this copy in here, but it still holds up as far as just the results that you can get from it. It's so simple. It's so interesting. And that's why I've talked with Brett so much about Iron Cardio and what he's doing right now. And as you said, I actually wrote a book called the 1 Day Strength Challenge on using something like Iron Cardio in the bits of 1 day, adding into other programs that you can do just to give you that little variety and kind of hit those holes, kind of similar of what you're saying of what's the best thing of using a program like this.
Yeah. And the art and cardio, I think would be a really good follow-up to doing like a prolonged experience with ETK. Using something like Plant Strong can also be very powerful. I did that. It's basically, I'm actually still on Plant Strong. That's what I'm doing to program my Ollie lifting, by the way. And I just really like it. I just like the philosophy, the approach, the way that it works, right? The way that it's broken down, where you're going to have these undulating volumes throughout the month, as we do 4 weeks at a time. And the intensities and the volumes are not, we don't think of that. Sometimes you have high volume and high intensity, and sometimes you have low volume, low intensity. It doesn't matter. What matters is the long term. And going from ETK into something like RM Cardio or Plant Strong, it's perfection. Like seriously, like obviously I didn't have that before, and I think it would have been great, especially at times when I was kind of like, getting close to like a performance or something. But hey, we are where we are. But
Yeah.
definitely Iron Cardio, #1 program that I would try after doing like a 4 to 6 months of ETK. And you're going to feel like you can run through a wall. I guarantee it. You're going to feel so strong and peppy.
Yeah. So going in, so the rite of passage when you got into first, when you did this program started, which I forgot actually there was like a program minimum, which is starting with swings and get-ups in this program. I think Simple Sinister almost enveloped the program
Yes.
minimum of ETK in here. I forgot that was in here. So how long did you work on that program till eventually then you moved into the rite of passage?
Because it was like at the beginning of the journey for me, I didn't really think too much about like keeping good notes about this. And I think I even say it in the article, like, can't tell you with certainty how long it was, but it was a few months because I just didn't feel comfortable. Like I felt like there was more progress to be made. And at a certain point, I just had to like put a stop to myself, because if it would have been up to me, I would have been on swings and get-ups till now. We'd be talking today and I'm like, I'm still doing swings and get-ups because I feel like I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Like, but I had to like cut it and just jump into the program. And I'm glad that I did. But it was, I would say minimum, it had to be 3 months, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And then so the rite of passage, now what I remember of it is this is a lot of clean and presses in here.
Yes, a ton of them.
Yeah. So it's clean and press, and then you're snatching, and then you're swinging as
Uh-huh.
well in that?
hmm Yeah. So here's how it breaks down. You have 3 training days that are scheduled. There's 2 different like recommendations that Pablo makes. I chose Monday, Wednesday, Saturday because that worked best with my schooling and my taking class and rehearsing and all that. Mondays are your easy day, so you will do clean and press ladders for 5 times 1, 2, 3, which totals 30 total reps per side. If you're doing clean and press with the 24 kilo, maybe nowadays it's not that big of a deal, but back then when I was learning, it was a huge deal. That was a challenging ladder. And then you finish your session by rolling dice, and if it's anywhere from 2 to 12 minutes, and you will do your snatches at about 50 to 60% of what you could do if you could go all out, right? Then Wednesday is like your medium day. So now the ladder goes up to 50 reps per side. You do 1, 2, 3, 4 times 5, roll dice, and now you're swinging at about a medium intensity, and that's perceived exertion. So it would be between 70 and 80% of what you could do if you went all out. Now, in the beginning, I should say, it's difficult to like figure out what that is because you have no idea. You've never really done this. You've never gone all out. But after doing the program for a few months, Saturdays, you get to go all out. So to make the numbers easy, if you did 100 swings in 5 minutes, then now you can start to kind of bring out what is 80%. Well, it's approximately this. And you also get a really good idea of how it feels in your body, that effort. Putting in also, did you sleep well last night? Are you worried? Do you have a test coming up? Did you lose your job? Like these things, like how to gauge where your body is at that time. And then on Saturdays, you do the full shebang. I call it the hardstyle party. You got 75 total clean and presses per side, and you have swings at 100%. So you're going to swing as hard as you can to our standard, right? Those crisp, sharp swings for as long as you can. And that's how you get your percentages for the rest of the week. And that's it. That's the program. All right.
So what was the benefits that you saw from the first part of Rite of Passage, getting into all these, clean and presses here? So was it a noticeable difference in strength? Was it conditioning? Was it a little bit of both? What were the big, longest levers that you saw that was most impactful for you?
Well, the simplicity of the program and how condensed it is, it allows you to practice the moves and perfect them, like you just feel like you're getting a lot of practice and you feel like you're getting better because you're doing it so frequently. In terms of pep, yes. Again, I try to explain this to people, 24 kilos. And in fact, when I first started, it was only 20 kilos really. But doing clean and press for that amount of reps per week, it starts to add up. You just develop this pep, especially in like vertical, right? Like, so jumping. So I always had pretty good ability to jump. But when I started doing this, I just felt this incredible pep. And I remember my teacher would always tell me, like, you jump like a deer. Like you just like suspend in the air. You're like, ding, and and that all came from that. And just think about it. What's that? Like, that's like 80 and then 75. That's over like 140, like up, like this big, powerful extension that you're doing. And then, when you decide that you want to jump, the pattern is there. So that was a big one. The conditioning for sure. You go from not really being a hardstyler, not doing ballistics at all. And all of a sudden you're doing snatches and swings on the regular, again, 3 times a week. And you feel like you can run a half marathon with no training.
Yeah.
You're just like, yeah, let's go. Strength, definitely. Again, 20 kilos doesn't sound like a lot, but for me at the time, if I went to the gym and picked up a 45-pound dumbbell and tried to press it, for 3 sets of 10 or whatever, it would have felt like something. Now I'm doing 75 total reps at least once a week. And I'm combining it with this, this clean movement as well. It's not just the press, but it's the clean. And then there's the very strict form that I was adhering to, right? So my strength got better. But then when I went to the 24, here's another jump. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, like, and I was building lean muscle. There is no noticeable like decay in any of the other skills. It just seemed like everything got better. In the article, I also talk about how it improved my hand balancing. Just that position, that deep flexion of the shoulder, the alignment is very similar. That group is very similar. Opening up to the thoracic spine, having more mobility there, just a smarter shoulder girdle, I would say, that you get, right? Because you groove this movement to such a degree that when I started doing like higher level skills in calisthenics, like the handstand push-ups, with no wall support, just straight up, like just in the middle of the room, and it was there. Like, it's not, I never said, oh, I'm just going to do this move and I'm going to practice it. No, I was just doing a crack ton of clean and presses for 3 years. And then throughout that time, eventually, occasionally I'll be like, let me see if I can do this. Mm-hmm. Sure enough, it was there, right? So in hardstyle, and you're familiar with this, we call it the what the heck effect. It's like, I don't know how this happened, but it happened while I was doing this. And is it because of it, or I don't know, I had trained for many, many years before I found kettlebells, and I can't tell you stories like that about the other training that I did,
Yeah. It's funny that, the what the heck effect is, something we've talked about for forever, in RKC and StrongFirst. And I think everybody they say that a lot in a lot of different things. Oh, if you do this, it's also going to help you with this and stuff, and it's going to bleed into that. And I kind of call bullshit on a lot of things with that because it's you have to intentionally like focus on the technique in order to get that what the heck effect. You can't just do something and it's just naturally going to go and improve everything else. Like the intentional aspect of doing each one of those 75 reps on the hard day. And I remember going through ETK, that heavy day is it's volume. Like, I mean, you're there for a while, like it's a lot of rest in between. And it's like to keep your focus, your mental focus on that while you're fatigued on that is a challenge in itself from there. But when we talk about the what the heck effect, yeah, if you going back to the beginning of our conversation and focus on getting as correct and perfect on your intention and form, then you're going to have that chance to see it bleed into those things like handstand push-ups or you're cycling with your conditioning or whatever it is from there, but it still goes back into that finding that technique right there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because then, again, it goes back to like, this is just how you operate all the time. This is the way that you approach movement, with this level of care and intention. And you can make connections and you can start seeing things. I said a one-to-one comparison, maybe not, but there are some parallels that you can draw from. And, we've talked about this before in some of our other conversations. And it's like this idea of movement vocabulary. And the more you learn, the more you have under your belt, the more powerful you are as a mover and as a teacher, because now you have more to draw from for your own experience, right? Like, so if I was not as well versed with the calisthenics and the kettlebell and the barbell as I am in dance and all of that stuff, would I be enjoying at 48 years old as much as I am enjoying learning Olympic lifting? The answer is probably not.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard and it's really hard on the body too, right? I mean, these are not like simple movements. I'm like dropping into like full squats with, hundreds of pounds overhead. Like it's, that's demanding. Now, if I didn't know what I know, I probably couldn't just do that. I can because of it, I believe, because I have that movement vocabulary and I have the disposition for it. I have the mental aspect of it, which is to refrain from being silly and doing dumb things in the gym so that you can progress at the rate that maybe seems a little modest, and maybe you wish it was a little more, but that's okay because we know that it's like this building up that happens and builds. In fact, I'm working with a student right now. She's super cool, young woman, very dedicated, new to kettlebells. Maybe we used to practice once a week for a while, and now we're at 2 times a week. But in a recent practice, we had been doing just the basics. And all of a sudden I said, okay, this is what I want you to do. And I took her through a simple progression of the snatch. It's very much the one that I use when I'm teaching at the StrongFirst SFG1. I straight out of the manual. And she did it. First time. Exactly. That's what people
I know that feeling. It's
people are like, oh, great, and it's just, me personally, I get super stoked about that, just me, but seeing her have that reaction as well. And, I mean, she took a kettlebell home so that she can practice more, that's the kind of excitement and the kind of like, I don't know, we just changed this. I feel like this philosophy of training makes people change the way they view physical exercise, that it's mundane and boring and I don't want to do this. And now it's just like this really exciting thing it makes them feel badass. And that's wonderful.
yeah. Yeah, the best way I've tried to describe it is it's a path to mastery. And when you talk about mastery in there, it's like it's something that's very difficult, something that's going to be very time demanding, and something that you can each day focus on getting a little bit better at, and it's like, and it's the pursuit more than the actual thing that you can do. But as when you said that there of teaching the snatch and then they get it and you see it, and it's like, I've had people I've worked with who like hit that first one and it's almost like a quizzical look on their face, like, oh my God, did I actually just do that? Did I do that right? Because the feeling, it doesn't bang on the wrist or it just flows right up there and it feels that like there is something to it. And I've heard that about Olympic lifting as well, where you catch it just right and you get that down and it's like it's like riding a bike for strength training. And it's one of the reasons I haven't done Ollie lifting is because I know I'm going to fall in love with it and I can't go into another modality right now in my mind. When I talked to Jeremy, he's talking. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting the itch on there. But it's just it's a different philosophy of what the normal is when we talk about workout or fitness on there. But it's so, you know, analogous of so many other things that we do in life. It's like you have a career and a passion. Okay. It's going to be demanding, it's going to take time, you need to get better at it every day. And you feel that you want to be in a great relationship. Okay, well, it's going to be demanding, it's going to take a lot of time, it's going to be work and you're going to have to get better at it over time. We do this in all other factors of life, except on our physical health. It's still this like surface level of like, oh, it's just a workout, go blast the music and get the dopamine that's rolling in that effect. And once in a while, I totally get it. It's an exciting thing to do. But when you're looking at the longevity of it, if you want a long-lasting career, you want a long-lasting marriage and relationship, you want a long-lasting relationship with your health and your strength, it's going to be a little bit different approach than what you're hearing.
100%.
Yeah,
We always agree.
I know exactly. I only bring people on who agree with me. Um, so there was a part in your journey that you started adding pull-ups into
Yeah.
it. Okay. And that was a big, marker for you of kind of like a good wrinkle in there. When did that come into play and why was that such a big benefit for you?
Yep. So obviously, we all know that physiologically we adapt to greater stimulus over time, right? And so that's the big question. How can this program be so effective? You're doing the same weight. Oftentimes, maybe if you jump, it's just like one jump, whatever. So this is where, for me, these small changes allowed it to go for as long as it did. Because every time I made a small tweak, it was really a big tweak. Brett talks about this in Iron Cardio. It's like the earthquake scale, right? That it's not like it doesn't double, it's like exponential. The next level over is
Right.
like much bigger, right? So you think, well, I'm just going to add pull-ups. Well, when you do that, you're going to find out very quickly that that was a serious decision that you should consider in the future, because the demands are now much greater and now you have to make some compromises. I for the most part did a single clean and then multiple presses while I was doing the pull-ups because of my hands. My
Oh,
hands
okay.
took up pounding. But there were times when I was so grooved and so focused and so dialed in that I was able to do clean and press, double, single or double with pull-ups. And that's challenging. And it's not really the muscular aspect of it. It's really the hand care that really jumps in and it makes you have a higher, it's like, we need to go pro, like that's the problem that we have. It's like, we just need to go pro. And so to do this program and do it at that level where you start to do and by the way, just for the people listening, the pull-ups are a recommendation in the book. That wasn't like my idea, right?
Hmm.
Says, hey, if you're hardcore, comrade, then you go ahead and you add some pull-ups and you're really going to see some extra benefits to it. I think there's a sense of balance that you get when you start doing
Hmm.
pull-ups. You're going to get a little denser and muscle-wise in your upper body. And if you're going to do something for so long, there's always a risk of repetitive stress injuries and things like that, right? Or feeling like a tweak because you're just doing the same thing over and over. Adding these movements, whether it was the double kettlebells or the pull-ups, it kind of offsets that a little bit. It just gives you a little bit of a different stimulus, right? And now maybe
Hmm.
I'm not doing as many cleans and that kind of stuff, but it keeps stimulating your system in a positive way so that you can keep making progress where there is body composition, conditioning, skills within the movements themselves, right? Because part of my motivation with the pull-ups was, hey, I want to do the TSC. That's an event
Hmm.
that has, I know but if somebody out there doesn't know, it's a max deadlift attempt. It's max pull-ups and max snatches in 5 minutes with a 24 kilo. There's varying categories now and all that stuff, but that's like the classic style of it. And I wanted to do the TSC. I don't know, it was one of those like, I want to try it out, see where I'm at. And I really just did ETK and I practiced a little bit of deadlifting on Tuesday, Thursday. It was very conservative, very much in the style of like power to the people when I just did like 2 sets of 5. And you just kind of, build it over time. Went in, I mean, nothing impressive. I know 315 or I think my max at the second competition was 355. Not a big deal, but I was weighing like 155 pounds at the time.
Yeah.
So to me, that was a big deal. and I was dancing a lot and all that. So, I felt like a really strong dancer. I may not have
Mhm.
been a strong guy, but I was a strong dancer.
Yeah. So when you started, you were doing a clean and press, so re-cleaning every time you were going into rungs, and then switched over into doing multiple presses when
Correct.
kind of the pull-ups started adding in.
Yeah, I had to. It was just
Yeah.
too much. You talked about Saturdays being like really long. It's like a long session. So when you're doing clean and press and you're adding the pull-ups, it became like a 2-hour marathon, sometimes even longer in the beginning. So to help with that, I just went ahead and knocked out just do the clean with multiple presses.
Mhm.
Another strategy, when you do the double kettlebell, if anybody chooses to embark on that journey, you're gonna get a little more peppy, right? Because now you're cleaning double the weight, but it's gonna save you time because you're doing both arms at the same time. Where with
Yeah.
the regular one, you have to split it between right and left, so it kind of like expedites that a little bit.
Yeah. But it is that difference of linear versus exponential. Like
Oh
it's
yeah, oh
yeah, it's
yeah,
like it's I've learned that a lot in double iron cardio work of double bell iron cardio is an exponential difference from single bell iron cardio in there. And it's great. I love it. It's like you expedite your time. It's very short, but I feel it in the afternoon after a 20-minute iron cardio session way more than I do like a single bell iron
yeah.
cardio session. Getting around the same amount of volume, probably actually pushing it the speed a little bit more in single bell just because it's, not as taxing in, every rep that you're doing. But the axial fatigue and the stress that you get on your nervous system with double bells is so different from the
Yeah.
single bell.
Yeah, in the article, I specifically mentioned I wish I had read Brett's Iron Cardio in that section about the energetics of the first rep before I went double because it makes a huge difference, especially on that first one. I remember getting towards the end of my ladders on Saturday. So a few of those days where I was out in the park, I'm in the sun, I'm in the elements, wonderful. This is all healthy stuff. But, I'm sitting there like, I gotta pick these things up, and they just kept like feeling like heavier and heavier every time I went to do like that
Mhm.
next rung on the ladder, and it was like, oh my god, am I gonna make this? And but if you have the mental fortitude to get through that and do that multiple Saturdays, right,
Mhm.
and not break that cycle, then what happens is that you know 24s feel like nothing. It doesn't even matter what I'm doing. There are times when I go on like 3-month long like body weight journeys, and I come back to the kettlebell and I will pick up 24s, and it always seems just as organic as it did when I was
Mhm.
in the height of that ETK run.
Right. So yeah, so at the kind of like the final third of this ETK run during this, you're alternating between some single bell work, adding in pull up, double bell, so kind of some little varieties to the entrees that you're putting in there. Did you have a process of intuition or like an idea of what you were going to do at different times? Were you more kind of going into the day feeling it out, or kind of what was your process of kind of varying this up in, a way that it wasn't just variety for the sake of variety, but what you thought was best for you in the different moments?
I would say like maybe like 60% was necessity, whatever my life called for, whatever I needed to do to be able to study and work and all that. And the rest of it was just caprice, like I feel like doing this thing. I'm just
Yep.
gonna
Okay.
go do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to that point of, the intuitive training and kind of like having that little variety of it. I've talked to Brett about this where it's kind of like now he's at the point 3+ years into the work he's doing with IC of like, ooh, yeah, that seems good. It's kind of like that little extra kick in your mind, like, yeah, I'm gonna try that out. And I think I got into a mistake with working with people at the beginning of their journey of doing this because it's almost like intuition, I think, of trusting your body. It's a very important thing. But also, I think you need to go into following the structure first, getting your reps in first and following it. That's why when I read your article the first time, it's like I think at a beginning stage of like first getting into this, I think a model program like this could be really beneficial. I'd be curious I mean, you're a couple decades into the work now with kettlebell training and stuff. If you went
Mhm.
back to ETK, if you thought you would get the same progress and progressive track that you would at the beginning. I know it's just speculation on there, but I'm always curious about that. Like, is it better to get that high volume work of a program like this at the beginning stages versus whether maybe you get to the intermediate, more advanced stage?
I'm gonna go with what you just said. I think that if you do it up front, it's kind of like going to the martial arts school and doing horse stands for 3 months until you can get to 5 minutes, basically, right?
Mhm.
Like it's boring, it's kind of repetitive. Well, not kind of, it is repetitive. It's just nobody wants to do that. But if you can build that foundation up front, that's the best time to do it. Okay. So with the ETK, if you want to be a hard styler, if you can come into it, because think about it, it's very complete, right? I mean, you could do like simple and sinister, two movements, which by the way, the break-in period for this book is basically simple and sinister, right? It doesn't have some of the recommendations for the weights, stuff like that, but the movements are pretty much the same. The idea is the same. Then you get into ETK, you have clean and press, you have your snatch, your swing. There are variety days within ETK. You can do Tuesday, Thursday, and you can do, they have recommendations in the book, like,
Yep.
heavy get-ups or double front squats or, things like that. And you can definitely do that. I chose to dance and do body weight, skills. Um, but yeah, like I think up front, it makes a lot of sense to do that lower intensity, really high repetition stuff to set your base and basically realign your tissues. This is Wolff's Law and Davies' Law at work, right? Your tissues will realign on lines of stress. And when you've done thousands, maybe tens of thousands of clean and presses, and then you move into something like iron cardio, do you think your body's going to respond well to the stimulus? Yeah, I'm going to answer that for you. Yes. The answer is yes, it will. Or if you go, get into something like Plant Strong and you're doing like presses and pistols and weighted pull-ups. Oh my God, dude, you're going to, again, the feeling that I personally have when I'm on a program like that, it's like I can run through a wall. I just feel so tough and peppy.
Yeah.
I just feel like and so that's my wish for every person that I work with. It's like, if you can ever get to that point where you feel like you can run through a wall, that'd be awesome.
It's an amazing feeling. Yeah. It's funny because, I remember I talked with Fabio about this, about high volume programs versus low volume programs, kind of higher intensity. And he brought up such an interesting point to me is like, you might think you're one thing, but your body will change.
Yeah.
He was doing a lot of high volume based work. And then it got to a point where then it wasn't impacting him as much anymore. It needed to go more low volume, higher intensity. But just like anything, the body adapts. And it's just like it's the same thing if you're, in a nutrition program. Like your body's going to adapt, your metabolism's going to adjust based on what you're giving it at times. It's the same with strength. So I remember like ETK, I saw huge benefits from it when I first got into this type of training in 2009. And then got into a Plant Strong program, which was kind of very similar, very high volume of working on my half body weight press for level 2. And got so fatigued out at that time. And it could have been some other markers in there, but so much like there was such a fine line of like feeling the benefits and then just going over it where all of a sudden your body started fighting back at you. And then I just switched to like a low volume program, a little just
Yeah.
higher intensity, and that just shot it up right there. So
Yeah.
it's weird how the body will just adjust over a year or even a couple years on it, but it will naturally do this. So you got to learn to just get this, as you said, like get your tissue in there, build that foundation, and then you'll figure out how to make the adjustments.
Yeah. And to further answer your question, I have revisited this program way later, years later, right? So the last one, 2007, 8, 9. So between like somewhere between 2010 and 2020, I must have revisited maybe like 3 or 4 times. Maybe like more modest times, like 3, 4 months at a time. But the beauty of it was that I had done that program for so long that whenever I come back to it, it almost feels like I'm on vacation. Like it feels really easy and it's almost like this built-in break, but we both know that I'm still doing a lot of work. And then when I jump into something else, I feel so refreshed and ready for it, as opposed to like, oh God, like this feels like a lot of work. One of the, in recent time, I had one transition that didn't work out very well for me. And that was going from when I did my powerlifting competition in 2023, and I went into a bodyweight phase, and then I was planning on doing another barbell cycle, and that was the worst crash I've ever had. Like it wasn't anything bad. Nothing happened to me. I didn't get hurt or anything. I just remembered that first week and thinking like, I don't want to do this. And that's kind of how I ended up going to Costa Rica and basically like
Mhm.
shifting big time. But that was the only time. Other than that, as I look back and I can go back, to like the late 80s, going from like martial arts training and this and the other, it just goes on, military, all that. I always seem to be very lucky in when I make the leap and I go to something else. And it
Mhm.
always has felt as if what I just did perfectly prepared me for the next thing, with the exception of that one time. And I think the adaptations were so specific and I pushed myself so hard for that competition in terms of my own skill and level, that it made sense that there was very few things that I was going to do and were going to feel good, unless it was powerlifting. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Do you think
So
it's because like you have such a background in things that are about pliability plus like strength and where powerlifting is much more rigid on there that it's almost like kind of the natural work of what you've done for so long that was just maybe just a little bit too far and that's why I kind of just felt a little bit more off.
I think so. And you often talk about intuition. I think I didn't have the intuition, but my body was talking to me. My body
Yeah.
was telling me like, this is not what I want to do right now. And being an older athlete, I have to listen to those things because I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to break myself. If I'm gonna break myself, let it be through some accident or something, not because I did that. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes I got from Frankie Ferris was, go to your workout with a question, not an answer.
Yep.
It's like listen to your body. And again, very easy to say, very challenging to do on
Yeah.
there. Yeah. So, Oz, brother, always great having you on. Seriously, thank you so much for your time. I was so pumped to talk to you about this and dive more into this and everything that you've been doing. So, really grateful for you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, dude, I'm always happy to talk to you. I'm always happy to be in the show. This is one of my top 5 podcasts that I listen to regularly. Being honest, the only best thing to listen to it.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. Well, until next time, we're going to have to do this again soon.
All right.
All right. Thanks, brother. Listeners, thank you so much. Talk to you guys soon. All right. Peace.